All right, I have 6:31. We're going to go ahead and get started with this evening's school board. For those that are able, if you wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The entire board is here in attendance, so I will call this meeting to order. Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mrs. Wielden. We like to start each of our meetings with a reminder of our mission, vision, and core beliefs. So our vision is that BCSE is the choice to learn, work, and play. Our mission is to develop expert learners by partnering with our community to invest in people. And our core beliefs are that we all can rise to the challenge of high expectations, that learning is most effective when we have choice, flexibility, and see relevance, that we thrive when our physical, social, and psychological needs are met, that our community and school district are stronger when we partner with one another, that we flourish because of the diversity and variability in our community, and that our democracy and democratic institutions are strengthened by civic-minded citizens.
Okay, first on the agenda tonight, we would like to welcome Miss Lily Davis to the podium.
Good evening, Dr. Phillips, board, cabinet. Thank you for the opportunity to recognize one of our seniors, team 2025, Lily Davis. I also have Mr. Manuel, her principal at Columbus East. And I just want to point out this really quickly. We made a publication earlier this year, and it was sent out to about 33,000 households. And it's a very big endeavor, especially when it was the first time doing this. And as a part of Lily's senior project, she was just an awesome contributor. This was a part of her senior project, and she'll talk about that in a moment. But I'd also like to have Mr. Manuel just say a couple words about Lily.
So it's my privilege to get to introduce Lily Davis tonight. Lily is just a great example of East and BCSE students and seniors here in BCSE. And Lily works hard in everything that she does, and this is her third year in journalism, this year serving as the editor of The Oracle, which is our newspaper booklet that goes out about once every month, serving diligently on that, making sure those stories are ready to go, creating some of the stories herself and checking on those. And she does all of that on top of her 3 AP classes that she's in her senior year, in addition to ones that she's done throughout her journey here at East. And so just knowing that this is part of what she's done for her senior project on top of all the other efforts that she goes in and the work that she puts forth, it's just an honor to get to know her and to get to know her over the last 2 years. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Lily Davis to you.
Hi everybody, I'm Lily. Throughout my senior project, I had the privilege of working alongside Josh and everybody else to go out and interview people within the BCSE community and learn a little bit more about what was happening. And with those interviews, I was able to report and write stories. I gathered pictures and put together stories to help with the publication that went out in January. So yeah, that was what I helped with during that.
And I will just say that I worked with Dr. Stahlbaum on this project, and she wanted everyone to know that she had 0 revisions for Lily, and she had a lot more for me. So Lily is very impressive, and just as a way to say thank you and acknowledge before the board, we have something that we'd like to give Lily. I'm going to hand this microphone to Mr. Manuel, and if you don't mind, if we could just take a picture, because it'll really help her senior project. So I'm presenting this to you, Lily.
And we're going to make her take a picture with the whole board, too. Lily, did you sign any autographs for anyone? No.
Sorry.
Thank you, Lily.
Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Davis before she gets in her seat? Questions, comments? Now you have to ask something. Okay, I brought her back up here.
What was your favorite part?
My favorite part was just connecting with people that I've never talked to before and getting to learn about parts of BCSC that I wasn't aware of, like interviewing with the preschool and the Legato system. That was all new to me, so I enjoyed learning all about that.
Having a passion for publications, is there anything you think we should do differently or better in BCSC to help reach parents and families?
I mean, I think you guys do a great job. This publication being sent out in the mail, I mean, we've had 2 this school year so far. I think that's a great way to reach people. I know you guys have a lot of outreach online, and I think that's a great way too with how media is changing. So I think the BCSC is getting out their information well, I believe.
Thank you.
Are there projects like this that you'd like to do in the future?
I mean, yeah, with the work I've done here, it's very similar to what I do with the Oracle, and I love it. So hopefully in my future I'm able to pursue something along the lines of publication. I like reaching out to the public and informing everybody. So yeah, hopefully.
Very well spoken and very well done.
Thank you
very
all.
much. Okay, we have school board member reports next. Mr. Major, would you like to go first?
Yeah, for the redevelopment commission, we met last week. Nothing really new to talk about. We've got some new people on the board now, or on the commission, so it'll take a little while to get them trained up so they understand what we're looking at for the future. And the health trust, we haven't had any changes since the last meeting, so.
Thank you. Ms. Lloyd?
For BCSF, I was able to meet with Executive Director Deepti. She was very helpful in going over goals for the year for the foundation, upcoming grant opportunities, what it looks like for board service, and specifically we are working on the Mela Gala. It's the South Asian Gala. It's set for April 26th. This is the gala that helps raise funding for the STEM programming for BCSC students. So this is a really great opportunity to support our students and the important STEM programming that's happening. So I have a flyer if you want to come check it out. I can share the QR code with you. Also met with Sarah Dunlap with Council for Youth Development to talk about upcoming activities with CYD. Most importantly, their youth summit is happening on March 18th. I still think they're looking for volunteers. So if you want to come volunteer with me that day, that would be great. You can visit their website or Facebook to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
2 reports. The Districting and Facilities Committee met in my absence, but continues to consider school name for the 12th elementary school. That process is following a prescribed procedure and will end up at the board later this year. I think we've received some information already as board members, but that's an exciting prospect. And then the Business Advisory Council met and gave some feedback to Mr. Nick Williams, who has explored a couple of things for the committee. One was he revisited the school naming process, told us how the Districting and Facilities Committee might in the future be looking at data about schools, capacities, and district lines. 2 pretty productive meetings.
Okay.
And all of those issues will be coming to the board in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Stenner. The Diversity Council met in my absence as well on February 19th. I'm going to go through some of the notes that took place during that meeting. The group was brought up to speed regarding graduation rates. Data was disaggregated so the team could look at that by different demographics, ensure we're getting every student to a graduation outcome. Several of the BCSC staff was honored in the community for their important contributions in the areas of citizenship, community building. The Building Community Award was just given by IU Columbus to one recipient, and there were 2 recipients of the Outstanding Citizen Award from the NAACP present. Spent some time talking about the High Ability Identification Program, and then just a broad discussion on how we're going to honor our commitment to helping all students in BCSC amidst kind of the political climate right now that makes things difficult. Things are changing, but we still need to make sure our kids are getting what they need. Okay, Mr. Nellen.
I have 2 reports. The one is, the first, the IU Board of Advisors met on February 12th. Let's see, for the spring of '24, their student headcount is up 14%, and the credit hours were up 19%. Part of that is due to their implementation of athletics, and students have a required number of hours they have to take to be involved in athletics. And Dr. Roberts of the Community Education Coalition gave a report on a Workforce 2040 project, which Columbus has partnered with other communities around the nation, and it's to look at ways to make the process going from K-12 education to higher education to careers as smooth and seamless as possible. So we're fortunate to be a part of that nationwide program. And then we actually, well, I didn't get to because I was virtual, but then there was a tour of the new, IU Columbus has a new student center that, what's the word I'm looking for? Help me, Lee. And anyway, they have a new student center that was dedicated that is worth a trip out to visit. Long-term, they hope to actually build a student activity center, an event center, but that's further out. Then ISBA, as the ISBA legislative liaison, first, kudos to Whitney Lloyd, who participated in the ISBA Legislative Action Day on February 18th. Thank you for representing us. And the legislature is at the halfway point. ISBA started out tracking 184 bills. It's down to 67 bills. And I want to talk about just a couple of them. One of the biggest is House Bill 1001, which is the budget bill. If you go to the ISBA website or other places, it will talk about the increases in special education, career and technical education, honors diplomas, and English language learners. Those, budget-wise, those are up, but the per pupil rate is actually flat from what it's been. The increase in budget is the anticipated increase in the number of students. This actually came up on the board over the last couple years since the state, since we can no longer collect textbook funds, the state established a curriculum support fund that we received at least once, maybe twice. That fund is, if this bill passes as it's written, that fund will end, and those curriculum support funds would be rolled into the regular student support funding. Which also means when you look at some of the percent increases, it looks like a higher percent increase because that's been rolled in. If you don't count that as new money, then the current budget proposal would mean a 0.4% increase per pupil in per pupil funding for us for 2026, and actually for all districts, and a 1.5% increase for fiscal year 2027. And this would impact our education fund. Another big bill is Senate Bill 1, which is on property taxes, and this bill would lower the potential growth of property taxes. This could impact our operations fund, but probably not, hopefully not as much because of added total property assessments because of new construction in our district. And one other I'll mention is Senate Bill 518, which would require traditional public schools to share property tax funds with charter schools if the charter school has 100 or more students. And when I first read that bill, my reaction was that doesn't impact us because we don't have any charter schools, but in fact, it would make us a prime target for for-profit charter schools to come in and use some of our tax money for their profit. There's a lot more bills. You can see them on the ISBA website.
I'll be a lot quicker.
Sorry.
The District Wellness Council met on February 11th. Kind of went through more of the CEP Title I process. And then most importantly, we discussed the substance abuse across BCSE and the students. And one of the big things that came out of it was the lack of support and counseling for minors, apparently. So one thing that I'm actually trying to do is partner with Camp Atterbury with the SUDC and ADAPT programs to see if they can provide some, at least documentation or products to help guide our youth into better choices and possibly develop a better partnership for further support. So.
CCIC met end of February, I believe, and we talked a lot about also Indiana legislation, but from the past cycle, which was the updated high school curriculum and pathways model. And so walked through that. We walked through the teams model and the successes that we're seeing with graduation. We also walked through pre-K performance and a couple other measures that are coming to the board in terms of just efficiencies that we're finding. So more to come.
Thank you. I think we'll go into cabinet reports now.
Yes, thank you. This is the Dr. Hack Show. We have 3 presentations in a row from Dr. Hack and her team. The first one really just bringing a refresher back to the board about the pre-K programming that we've had in the district for the better part of 20 years. And we haven't regularly, annually brought a presentation to you about that pre-K programming. So Dr. Hack and her team are going to update you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mrs. Wielden, Dr. Phillips, and the board. Tonight, we are sharing information regarding our pre-K program within BCSE. Our mission in pre-K is preparing children who are socially, emotionally, and cognitively ready for kindergarten. We provide a high-quality education to our 4-year-olds in the community while not losing sight that 4-year-olds are not just little adults. They are children who are exploring, learning, testing boundaries, enhancing skills, and really are just a lot of fun to be around. With this, I will introduce Liz Stroh, our Director of Pre-K, and then let her introduce her team and the fantastic work that is being done in our pre-K program.
Thank you, Dr. Hack. This evening, I have with me my Assistant Director, Kim Bachmeyer, and our UDL Facilitator, Kate Edgren. BCSE Pre-K was first opened in 2010 and eventually moved to the Johnson Building in 2011 with 7 classrooms. Our program has grown significantly and has expanded to 14 classrooms that are staffed by 48 highly trained instructors. This staffing allows our classrooms to maintain an exceptional 4-to-1 child-to-staff ratio. It is a priority of our program to be accessible to all families. Currently, 59% of our students receive financial assistance through On My Way to Pre-K vouchers, which are provided by the state, or modified tuition rates. BCSE Pre-K is independently funded and does not utilize resources from the Education Fund. We are also very proud of the quality of our classrooms. Each is Level 3 Paths to Quality rated. This rating system is a tool for families to recognize high-quality childcare. Our Level 3 reflects not only our classrooms being safe, healthy, and conducive to learning, but also offering a planned curriculum that guides child development and school readiness. These are intentional spaces designed or currently being designed with our youngest learners in mind. And it's all thanks to the Envision 2030 work.
BCSC Pre-K has adopted the Reggio philosophy as its curriculum. This philosophy originated in Reggio Emilia, Italy, and is based on the principles of respect, responsibility, and community. It emphasizes a child-centered philosophy where children are seen as capable, competent, and curious learners. The Reggio philosophy focuses on, first, the image of the child. Children are viewed as active participants in their learning. They are seen as curious, capable, and competent individuals who construct their learning and own understanding through exploration, and interaction with the environment and the people around them. The environment as the third teacher. The environment plays a key role in the Reggio-inspired practice. Classrooms are designed to be aesthetically pleasing, organized, and full of natural light, materials, and open spaces. It is arranged to encourage exploration, discovery, and collaboration. BCSC's current renovations are very much aligned to this style of learning. This is evident with the neighborhoods, natural elements, and neutral color schemes throughout the already renovated classrooms and spaces. Learning through exploration and play. The approach emphasizes hands-on learning. Children engage in play-based activities where they explore, investigate, and question the world around them. Play is seen as essential for cognitive, social, and emotional development, where children interact with their peers, teachers, and environment to construct knowledge. The role of the teacher. Teachers in a Reggio-inspired environment act as facilitators and co-learners, guiding children's exploration and supporting their inquiries. They observe, listen, and document, responding to children's interests and providing opportunities for deep learning. They also provoke and challenge children's thinking through open-ended questions.
A study out of Boston was actually recently highlighted in an NPR article in 2021 that emphasized the benefits of a pre-K program like the one we have in BCSC Pre-K. The results show the life-changing impact of having a pre-K experience. In the study of 4,000 students who attended pre-K were 6 percentage points more likely to graduate high school and 8 percentage points more likely to attend college. In addition to these benefits, the study also showed students who attended pre-K had less behavioral problems. In our local context, we are seeing the benefit of our pre-K programs on IREAD scores in our students who are non-English speaking. We also provide transportation to and from school to our students and provide a competitive cost per week as compared to other local providers. Finally, the study mentioned estimates a 7 to 10% return on investment for every dollar spent on pre-K through the economic gains for the students and their families, in addition to decreased spending on social, correctional, or remedial programs. This is money well spent.
Next year, we are excited to be opening 2 additional classrooms to meet the growing demand within the community. One will be located at Taylorsville Elementary and the other at Clifty Creek Elementary as a second Legato pre-K classroom. The expanded reach aligns with the Envision 2030 goal to serve 80% of kindergartners through BCSC pre-K. Our commitment is to ensure that as many children as possible enter kindergarten prepared for success. Additionally, we are meeting the need for high-quality care within the community. Currently, an estimated 695 children in our area are in need of childcare between the ages of 0 and 5, an increase of 150 children since 2030. While the need is increasing, the number of high-quality providers, such as BCSC Pre-K, is decreasing. The need for financial assistance has also increased significantly by almost 65% since 2021. Our program continues to be among the most cost-effective in the community. BCSE Pre-K provides a learning experience that is not only exceptional in quality, but also exceptional in value. We welcome you to come and see our students and how they are growing each day. Please reach out to me if you would like for this to happen. I'd be happy to give you a tour. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for us?
I have a couple questions. First, I should have looked this up after I looked at this earlier, but Reggio reminds me a lot of Montessori. Are there differences between this and Montessori that would be important for us to know?
I will let my assistant director, Kim Bachmeyer, answer this.
I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to answer it really well. I'm not super familiar with Montessori, except that Montessori is more individualized, and Reggio is more of a collaborative group type. They work together more so than a Montessori setting.
I'd call that an important difference.
I could be completely wrong, but I
that's
think
good.
I'm pretty sure that's the difference.
My next question is about the On My Way Pre-K, which is basically kids getting scholarships to go. I've heard from private preschool people that sometimes there are a lot of hoops expected, particularly of parents, that make that a challenge. Do you experience that? When you get kids, when those kids are in the program, are they likely to stay in the program the whole year, or are there, I guess that's the question.
We have not had that issue in our program. I think the hardest part for parents is really the application process, and that's just because it's a two-step process. So first, the parent has to fill out an inquiry, and then there's follow-up paperwork that they have to submit online. That's typically where we see the most difficulty. Once the children are in our program, it is very rare that they do not stay in our program. And the only reason that they would be dropped from On My Way Pre-K is due to attendance. We find that our attendance rates in pre-K are really excellent. The kids want to be in our classroom, which is a great thing.
And my last question is, so are the current numbers limited by the space we have?
It depends on the school. Really, some schools, yes. And so that's one of the reasons why we're expanding in the two areas that we're expanding. Those are two schools or programs where we see the greatest need. In other areas, it just fluctuates. And that's kind of the difficult part about estimating numbers for pre-K, is that they do fluctuate from year to year. Fortunately, though, for our program, because we provide transportation, we're able to maintain fairly consistent class sizes.
Thank you.
I had a question on the target built in within Envision 2030. How did we come up with the 80%?
It's a kindergarten classroom usually has up to around 25, and pre-K classrooms are capped at 20. And so if you had 3 kindergarten classrooms in a building, we would target to try to have also 3 pre-K classrooms to have the capacity to meet up to 80% of the kindergarten enrollment at each of our buildings.
So what's the current rate roughly?
I'm sorry?
What's the current rate roughly?
Varies widely across buildings. For example, Lincoln doesn't have room, it doesn't have a pre-K. Taylorsville had 1 classroom this year versus, they have 3 or 4 kindergartens at Taylorsville this year, I don't remember. But it's usually more like 1 classroom to 3.
So when we look at like kindergarten or first grade, right, we have the parochial schools. What's our typical rate at that perspective? Because I guess the 80% feels very closely aligned with what we've seen in kindergarten through 6. And so is the goal to grow to be at the same level where really it's just the parochial schools that were gapped, or like, because like there's a lot of providers in this space, right? You got My Kids Went to Kids First. I know there's Fairlawn and then Sandy Hook, and then like Cummins Daycare Center. So like, I would assume this would be a much lower rate than what we would typically have of kindergarten, unless, are you seeing something changing that I may be missing?
Only that the trend is to have more support, both federally and at the state level, for pre-K. And so our goal is to have the capacity at every one of our buildings to accommodate up to that 80% of our incoming kindergarten, if in fact there is ever support and everybody can go to pre-K that wants to.
Gotcha.
We don't want to be limited. We don't want funding to show up and support to show up and then say, well, we would love to serve those students, but we don't have capacity in all of our buildings to get, 80% of our kindergartners in there.
Yeah, another way to maybe ask that is, do we have a ratio of teachers to students? Is it like at pre-K, is it like 1 to 10?
Actually, in our classrooms, it's 4 to 1. So 1 staff member to every 4 children, which is actually a far more desirable ratio than most of the preschools you're going to find around town. And the other benefit I will add is that our curriculum directly aligns with the curriculum of K through 6. So we already start those early literacy curricula that you've heard about all year in our classrooms, so that when our students enter kindergarten, they're already very familiar with the routines. They have a solid start with all of their sounds and letters. So it's a really good foundation, and we can be confident of that.
So one thing, you've shown the performance of kids that do attend pre-K. My wife taught pre-K at Southside 25 years ago. And so do we have a mechanism today? I know we're using LHP, I think, for data analysis, but do we have a mechanism that could look at the kids that enrolled as a kindergartner that had pre-K, at least in BCSE? That might be a national number, and then can we separate those to look at kids that had BCSE pre-K, and then as they graduate, can we show the trend to see that, number one, pre-K is better, and then hopefully, BCSE pre-K comes out on top of all of those to be able to show, just overall performance. And it's a selling point, too, for the community as well.
Well, we already do have some of that data. So the LHP data specifically targeted our program and showed significant impact on our free and reduced populations and our English as a second language populations. But I will also note that the most dramatic data that you will find that is correlated with pre-K is actually behavioral data. So really what we're looking at is less referrals, greater graduation rates. So really it's about school readiness as much as it is about test scores. And for that, I don't know if that is something that we could do.
We don't have it now. Looking backwards, we've talked about this. Dr. Hack and I have talked about this for the better part of 9 years or so, but we do not have, we know whether they attended BCSE's pre-K, but we don't know outside of that if they attended no pre-K or one of the other ones that you mentioned. And so we just don't have it. Looking backwards, we could start collecting it next year.
We're doing it, yes.
Go ahead, Dr.
Yes, we already have a plan for next year. We'll have a universal screener within our BCSE system. So our kindergartners coming to us will have a set of questions that our kindergarten teachers will help screen. And it gives the kindergarten teacher another relationship builder, as well as where's this little guy or girl at this point in time, so they can help with class placements. It'll also have the opportunity to have a box checked pre-K, or yes, did they have a pre-K experience, and where did they go to pre-K? So we're working on that, and it will be up and running for next year. We piloted this year with a handful of our teachers, but next year will be full-fledged.
Thank you.
I'm not sure where I got this idea, but I think it would be really cool if we had a senior project that would put together some publication and advertising for what a great job we do.
We would love that. And I will say that Ms. Davis did interview our program, and she did a phenomenal job. We were so impressed with the product that she created. It really, I think, captured the essence of our program. Yeah. But it would be nice to have pre-K specific literature as well.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
all. Dr. Hack, before you jump to the next one, there are just a couple of things that I want to add on here. First of all, we are part of a really strong community ecosystem for early childhood and pre-K, and we really consider all of the other providers partners in the community. We work together on advocating for pre-K at the state level, and also work to share seats and information across schools. And then the second thing I wanted to just speak, Mr. Nallen, to your point, we do have two parallel systems that exist and are continuing to grow apart from one another. The On My Way Pre-K program that provides support for 59% of the kids who attend BCSE's pre-K. If you're a family of 4, you only qualify for that if you make less, for the full support, if you make less than about $45,000 a year, and you have to be working, enrolled, training, or looking for work, or enrolled in a program. There is another program funded by an $18.5 million tax credit at the state level that provides scholarships for 4-year-olds who attend specific private pre-Ks. And those are, the proposal right now is that those would have no limits on income, and they also have no requirement that anyone be working or looking for work. So I've advocated with our legislators on that topic and will continue to do so, just to make sure that 2 similarly situated 4-year-olds have equal access to high-quality pre-K program. Thanks for letting me rant there.
Please continue. We need all the support, so thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you, Liz.
Yes.
All right, we'll continue talking about IREAD tonight and our foundational reading skills. So we wanted to bring bring the opportunity to you tonight to talk about reading foundational skills in our current 3rd grade students at BCSE. Standing with me is Jeannie Long, an instructional coach for the district and an instrumental part of the work that we do in BCSE. Tonight, we will review our students' progress, the strategies we've implemented, and our next steps in ensuring every child is set up for success in literacy.
Let's highlight some of the hard work that has been happening in our classrooms. We've taken intentional steps to strengthen our literacy curriculum in our classrooms. We have looked at all the supports that are needed and some of those key instructional strategies you can see on the screen this evening. I would like to highlight 2 of those for you tonight. Interventions and continuous progress monitoring. We have been actively doing these 2 things to provide targeted instructions to meet the students' needs. Teachers continue to work with each student and look at them week by week and then report on them monthly so that we can see their strengths and what they might need additional support in. The other thing that I would like to highlight this evening is our professional development that we've had in our district on the science of reading. Every PD day in BCSE, we have devoted time around the science of reading and what those practices are and what they look like for in each and individual grade level. Our team created plans that strengthen their knowledge through discussion in this research so that the teachers can utilize these practices in the classroom. One way we continue to monitor this work is with our NWEA assessment. This is an indicator of our students' literacy readiness. This winter's NWEA results showed an increase in students reaching proficiency compared to this time last year. This is a very, very encouraging trend as it highlights the effectiveness of our strategies and supports and instructional practices. While this is not cohort data, it is a celebration nonetheless.
So this brings us to where we are currently. And as a reminder, 352 of our current 3rd grade students successfully passed IREAD last year as a 2nd grader. They demonstrated the impact of early interventions and the work that we do. We have 849 students currently in 3rd grade. This leaves 497 students testing in 3rd grade actually today. Of those currently testing, 373 are predicted to pass based on their performance on 2nd grade administration, continued interventions, and the results on NWEA assessments. This leaves us 124 students considered to be at risk. Of this group, 96 students qualify for a good cause exemption, such as receiving special education services and reading, or are considered to be new language learners. The remainder 28 students at risk do not qualify for a good cause exemption and are at risk of being retained in third grade for another year if they do not pass IREAD after 2 more administrations of the test. One administration will be at the end of this school year, and another will be at the end of summer school. While these numbers show some challenges, they also highlight that many students have already demonstrated proficiency and are on track to pass. So using all that available data, including IREAD in second grade, NWEA, teacher feedback, and intervention effectiveness, we currently project an overall IREAD pass rate of 78 to 84%. Please remember that this is not cohort data, and we always want to see a growth from year to year in the numbers of students proficient, but these are different students in a different year. So looking ahead, we have a clear timeline for the coming months to promote opportunities for success. The first IREAD assessment started today and will continue through March 14th. Preliminary scores for passing students will be analyzed the week of March 24th. Those who did not pass in March will have that second opportunity to take a test the week of May 12th. Summer school for targeted support and in a third testing opportunity will take place May 27th to June 6th. For those who are not successful on any of those 3 attempts and do not qualify for a good cause exemption will be notified of retention per legislation the week of June 9th. Finally, the IDOE will release the final state-confirmed pass rates in August. In closing, the next 3 months will be pivotal. While we acknowledge the challenges, we also celebrate the progress made and remain steadfast in our mission to ensure all students develop the foundational reading skills for academic and lifelong success. I am so proud of the work being done in our schools. The students, the teachers, the administrators, families, book buddy volunteers, TAs, and coaches have poured their hearts into this work to help students read. They know it matters for these students today and tomorrow. It is a challenge to teach students to read. We take this work seriously and know that we change lives because of it. Thank you for your time, and we'll take any questions.
How does our rates for the IREAD, the passing and the good cause exemption, how does that compare to the states, that breakout?
So by IREAD, the
so
last one, we were ahead of the state.
Okay.
Yeah. And administration of second grade, very much in similar line, but definitely we're ahead of the state in third grade passing.
Dr. Hack, can you say of the 28 students, are any of them in the IREAD program currently? The 28 students that I think we've said are at risk, are those specific students in, I'm sorry, not IREAD, Book Buddies? Thank you. Dr. Phillips knew what I meant, Book Buddies program.
Sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
Some are in Book Buddies, some are in targeted interventions. Every child, though, is known by their teacher for the opportunity that they did not pass in second grade, are at risk during this year. And week by week, we have been tracking those students, their progress, and where do we need to help them grow. So if it's not Book Buddies, it's an intervention within the classroom.
Okay. And their parents would be aware also of
Absolutely.
their status? Okay.
We sent home a letter August saying that their child was at risk because of second grade scores. Then we sent home another letter in January saying again their child was at risk. And then many more things have happened even this last month to let parents know IREAD's coming. If you've watched the news, you've seen the Indianapolis news, they've talked about it. So it's very well known that IREAD is here. And so we've been doing our part to have family intervention nights, to have parents come in to work with individual teachers. Principals have had nights to say, come and work with us. So yes, we've been working on that.
Is there anything you need from us to help support you going forward?
Let's see. Just a few more hours. I think we're good. We want definitely to see this first swing at the bat. We are so excited to see that number coming out of the gate, and we'll have those analyzed the 24th. So we're just excited. At this point, we can't do anything. We're just waiting, but principals in the buildings are doing everything that they can. Teachers know the importance of this, and they're excited too. We just want to see where that first initial score comes in.
Okay, and we'll have that between now and our next meeting, is that right?
Preliminary, yes, but
Preliminary.
a long way to go considering all the retest opportunities that are available.
Correct. Okay.
For a final passing percentage.
So in essence, we're funneling down to a smaller number each time.
So the first prediction range you gave us, that's the prediction for after the first administration of the test, is that?
So the way that I looked at that, Mr. Nowlin, was out of the gate, we hope to have a 74% out of the gate with no, with just our preliminary results. And then eventually we'll inch up kid by kid to 84. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for even maybe a tad higher, but hate to put that on a screen, but that's our best guess at this point.
And I should have started with thank you for this report. This is exactly the kind of thing that I've been hoping for instead of us waiting until we get the IREAD results. We fully realize their predictions with an unknown margin of error, but it's still great to see. And if we could actually reach, I don't want any of our kids to be retained, but when this legislation first came out, I couldn't imagine we would have a number as small as 28. So this is pretty thrilling to me.
Kudos, yeah, kudos to those teachers in the
Yes,
buildings
yes.
and teachers and principals who know those students' names and scores.
And I also have to add, from my very meager understanding of reading and the science of reading, but with one of my book buddies, this particular book buddy has had trouble sounding out things with like TH or two, I don't even know what it's called, two letters together, and there's a sheet that we work on that it's just really cool to see some of the techniques that I was told come out of science of reading that help them see some of those errors and think about it and fix them. I think it's a powerful thing. So thank you for all your work on that too.
And thank you again for being a book buddy. And this is the time that the light bulb comes on for so many students. And so we're appreciative of the state, again, giving us that opportunity to give that second administration, third grade, before they actually leave for summer. That will help us, again, funnel down.
And I guess I had one other question. Thank you. So between administrations, is something different done with those kids or continuing the same work that they have done? The kids who didn't pass the first administration.
So again, we'll go kid by kid. So we will analyze where did that student fall on the IREAD score, what was their deficit, but also where are their assets, and then how do we build on that, making sure that we tweak where they need to go, and then in that time now between that May 12th second administration, and then even after that, are there ways to get those little guys over the hump during summer school? So we will go fine tooth. And the state does give us data to help us do that.
Okay, I'll be quiet after this one.
No, please. This is fun. We love it.
But something else that I wasn't aware of, and I actually learned through my experience with book buddies that other board members might not be aware of, is, I mean, it's not just teaching the kids to read, but some of it is helping them understand what the questions are asking to convince someone else that they do know how to read and that they understand what they're reading.
Correct. And we teach our students to go back into the text. We want them to ask a question, and then where does that say that in that text? That is a skill that we do practice, and we are encouraged by our book buddies doing that as well. So thanks again to Jeannie and Gretchen Turgon and to the work that they've done together to make book buddies even stronger has been powerful the last few years.
Yeah, and I want to echo what Dale said. This is a great report. I thank you for that. Graduation rate would be another one that I think we're not looking for exact, but you are giving us a projection and a trajectory. Are we going to be here or up here? So we now have this range of expectation to where we'll be. And I also agree with Mrs. Wielden want to echo what she said about what else is needed, because I wasn't 100% sure how. I'm glad you explained that. I looked at it as being an average of 82%. So the way I formulated my question was, what is it going to take for us to move to 86% and then 90%? given that you've got 7 strategies. So what is the 8th or the 9th or the 10th thing that you need to do that requires our support and approval? Because to be honest with you, I think we're all kind of sitting here scratching our heads thinking, how does a third of our kids not pass reading, right? So I think we all want to see them pass. We know we're not going to probably get to 100%, but how can we inch closer to it?
I think that intentionality with reading is essential. We've had 4 cadre coaches in our school, in 4 of our schools. What's that opportunity to take that and maybe look at what they're doing in that cadre and then expanding it? Whether it just be knowledge or even people, we do have to look at what the possibility is there, because I'm curious to see how those 4 schools who are part of the cadre do compare to our other schools who are not part of the cadre. So that's going on behind the scenes. We're definitely watching that, but that's something that's on our minds. Jeannie, can you think of something else that we have amazing resource. HMH is our adopted resource. We feel so confident with that resource. We feel confident with the teachers that are in the buildings. Where we also possibly could see some support is with mentoring in our K-3 classrooms with our newest teachers. So having somebody who is experienced in science of reading, who could actually work with those teachers individually before the school year starts, doing those simple check-ins with them along the way, that's another possibility of where we could grow.
And Dr. Hack, I'll just add, I think the number one thing on the list for support is how do we support those K-3 teachers? It's not a sustainable strategy to just put a whole lot of pressure on 3rd grade teachers, because they carry the weight of every kid in their classroom. They know how far away a student is from passing. They know what their most recent score was every week. They carry that weight. So we have to spread that across all the primary grades. And a couple of strategies that have been mentioned already tonight. First of all, helping mentor new teachers at those primary grades so they can be successful right off the bat. And we already have it on the agenda to bring to you for approval at either the next meeting or the one in April. And then the other one we've talked about multiple times during our board meetings, and that's pre-K tonight. So we know that for specific kids who are already going to struggle with mastering fundamental reading skills by the end of 3rd grade, they can really benefit from pre-K. So adding 2 classrooms, one for Clifty students and one for students at Taylorsville, both at our Title I schools, in the long run are going to start, you should start seeing that number continuing to tick up without just putting an enormous amount of pressure on those 2nd, 3rd grade teachers.
The only other thing I had, unfortunately, Mrs. Haynes, I saw her leave, but we want to be the STEM capital of Indiana, so my next question is, do we have a similar report for math performance to understand how our students are performing in math?
We do have NWEA as another part of the work that we do. So we can continue to look at our NWEA, but part of our work and part of our systemic work is really digging into the IREAD, and that's been where our focus has been. But definitely we're hearing more and more about legislation looking at math, so we wouldn't be surprised if there's something coming down the pike for that. But we also know it's important for our work too.
I would, of course, also echo that.
Wonder why.
Dr. Hack, can you share why the cadres were assigned to their specific schools? Was it based on IREAD scores?
Correct. It was based on IREAD scores of last year. We had to apply at a certain time, and at that point, our initial score made me believe that they could use that extra boost. And so because of that, we were able to put 4 cadre people in those 4 schools, and that was the reason why.
I also really appreciate the fact that your team they're meeting each individual student where they're at. I think that says a lot about BCSC and the IREAD initiatives. You both specifically mentioned focused intervention for students with special needs. Can you just give an example or 2 of that?
So we have some schools that are looking at some other resources. So there are some resources that the IDOE has put on their high quality resource list. And so we looked at those. So we have our core curriculum. And so we look at what is outside of our core curriculum so that they get that on grade level. That is extremely important when you're thinking about that reading instruction, that every student gets on grade level for 90 minutes. And so then what is that next tier, that next +1? And so we have gone to the IDOE suggestions. They've listed a couple of things that we could use that are resources that our teachers can use. So those students, so for example, at a school that I work with, they have now very intentional groups that are, there's like 4 different groupings. One is on very specific phonemic awareness. So we've identified what program will work best for that. And we've found that, purchased it, and they're using that. Which one are needing a little more phonics? So we have another program, Florida Center for Reading Research, offers a lot of free resources. Another resource, the UFly resource, it has a lot of free resources. That's what it's for, and the IDOE accepts it. Another group is working on fluency, getting those students so that they are feeling confident when they're reading. They just need a little bit more work on having that prosody, the rate, the accuracy. They have a group that's just working on comprehension, and those are our students that are so close that we feel are right there on track, but they really need that very intensive work on comprehension, going back in the text, finding those answers, and being able to answer those multiple choice questions. So that's just one kind of example of what I know one school that I currently work with, that it's 4 or 5, and it's like 5 different people, and so they take that group of students and then they are working with all of those. And then they have the students that already passed. They already passed in 2nd grade. So now they're having them in higher literature and doing projects with them so that they're meeting really all the students, not just the students that we're really worried about. So right there, that's 5 lesson plans for one 30-minute lesson a day. So it's a lot of work and a lot of intentional things, and what we're looking at is making sure that what we use is research-based. It's not something I find and I pull off. That's really the key that we talk about a lot, is that it has to be a research-based curriculum and materials, and not just something we pull off of the internet. So,
Well, thank you for the work that you're doing, and congratulations on the incredible progress.
Thank you. And Mrs. Lloyd, we would also like to point out, we wouldn't just pull one set of students out based on maybe the identification of special education. We would look at what Jeannie is saying, and we would pull students no matter what classification they might have is on fluency. So it would be an intermixed group, not just based on their special education status.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
thank you.
Ms. Woodward.
Oh, yep.
We've talked about a lot of the items on the implemented strategies slide. You've gone into the strategies. I'm curious about one we haven't talked about, the quarterly data meetings. Could you describe who's in the room and what some of the items on the agenda are?
Correct. I can tell you from my level, I meet with principals and talk about the data on a quarterly visit, and that would be with the instructional coaches, myself, and a principal, and maybe the UDL coach or another person in their building that would help drive that conversation. Jeannie's in those conversations at the building level, so I'll let her explain that.
So when we look at those meetings, we're really looking at the data, and what we do is we look at, and we've heard this many times today, but we pull up that spreadsheet and we are looking at each and every one of those students. So we would look at, where are they with phonemic awareness? Does this group need, where are they? Should we bump them up because they need a little, maybe a little push? Maybe they're getting a little stagnant. So we look at the data and see how their numbers have gone up and down. We have a conversation about how were they that day? You know, when they did the testing, what have you noticed? Or how are they doing in class? So there's a lot of really good discussion about the kids, about who they are, about what we notice in class, not just this one test or progress monitoring that we do. What do we notice that they are doing in class and what they're turning in and how they're participating? And so we always gear on the side of, we're going to push them a little harder and see what they can do to the next section. And then we look at the phonics, and then our ultimate goal is that they all get to that fluency. So we have a lot of conversations. How can we get them to that oral reading fluency, where they're reading passages, answering questions, and we're getting them to that 80% mark on a comprehension passage. So that's always our goal is, okay, so this person's a little stagnant. So what do we need to change up? What do we need to do a little differently? Or maybe they need to be bumped up to the next level to see how they do. And 9 times out of 10, when we kind of bump them up a little higher, we see them that just increase, because it's a renewed challenge. And We do have to have some conversations with those little fellers and girls that they're like, why do you keep making me do this? No, we're like, then do your best on this one and we can move you on and get to the fluency. And so it's just very intentional on where they are and how we can get them to that goal. So a lot of conversation on what we're doing, what's working, who did something that worked really well, how can we recreate that? Even I go to all the 11 elementary schools, and what they always ask, what is somebody else doing? Somebody, you go around, what are they doing that they're seeing success? So then I share what's happening in another building where they saw some success. And so then they try and do that there too, to just everyone is searching for how can we get them reading. That's our ultimate goal, is get them reading.
Thank you.
I was in those sessions too, asking what do they need from us as principals? What do you need from us at the district level? They always want another Jeannie. They say, can Jeannie just come and work with us? So we get her out as much as possible. But again, their comments are usually time and confidence for the kids. That's what they go back to, that personal touch and that relationship. They need time.
Thank you. Appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you. And Jeannie's going to stay, and we'll ask Sean Dever to come on up. Sean is a teacher at Taylorsville Elementary, and so tonight with Jeannie, we'll be talking to you about the review of our science materials. Science is not just another subject in the school day, it is a fundamental part of how we understand the world. We solve real-world problems and prepare students for their future. We take this work and appreciate it, and to be able to present to you a resource that does just this. It gets students excited and curious about our world as they become our next generation of scientific learners.
Our adoption team was made up of representatives from all BCSC elementary schools and 2 parent representatives. We are very thankful for all of the collaboration that this team had during our meetings. We appreciate the parents that came and offered their insight and time. The group was very thoughtful about the needs of our elementary students and teachers.
So we want to take you through the timeline of this adoption process. So in September, Dr. Hack, Sean, and I worked to create a team in our district so that we could evaluate these resources for our science curriculum. These are 6-year adoptions, so we take them very seriously because we have them for 6 years. So during October and November, Sean and I met with our team. We discussed and reviewed some potential resources. And this winter, Sean and I presented Dr. Hack what we thought would be a great resource for our elementary teachers. We then began some negotiations on reducing the price. So the adoption team discussed resources that were on the IDOE high quality resource list. We evaluated the cost of these resources. We also really looked and talked with our teachers that were with us and the parents. What is our current state? What usage do we have of our current adopted resource? We then used a rubric that had elements of UDL that we've used for many years to evaluate all these resources. So the team determined that Studies Weekly was the best option for our BCSC elementary schools. This might look familiar to you because this is the company that we currently use for our social studies. I would like to highlight a few of the reasons that our committee selected this resource. There was a K-6 alignment in the Indiana Next Generation Standards. It's very important when we're looking at resources for our district that we make sure that they are in alignment with our standards. The students and teachers have access to an online and a print publication, and it is a newspaper-like publication that they get to use each week. So they are weekly. So one of these K-6 they have weekly. Another thing that really has come up with our social studies use is that there is this family engagement. What is really nice about this resource compared to other ones that we've used in the past is that at the week's end, this can immediately go home. Instead of the one big consumable book that we have had previously, that it goes home at the end of the year. And typically then goes straight to the trash can. Where these, we use these in the classroom to cut them up, to make projects, to make posters with, to make all kinds of do all kinds of activities with. But then it also can go home so that parents, guardians can work with this and extend this learning opportunity at home for their students. Another reason is that there is a huge language arts, math, and STEM connection. And we are continuing and planning so that we can be that STEM capital here in Indiana. And this is a really good resource to help us get to that along with our STEM classrooms. The final one is that it's very cost effective. It's a very cost-effective science curriculum when we compared it to some of the other ones that we took a look at. So now comes the fun part. So I don't get to teach lessons very much anymore, so we wanted to do a lesson with you today. So at your table, you have an example of an experiment that can be done in a 3rd grade classroom. So at your tables, you should have a cookie, you should have a ruler, and you should also have a lab sheet that could be done in a 3rd grade classroom. Now, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make you do this. We don't have time for that. But I wanted to show you, this is one engaging activity, one week that I looked through this publication, that I made this activity. I wrote a lesson that could go for math, measurement. It could also include, it has a writing activity. So 3rd grade is persuasive writing, being able to use text evidence to explain why this cookie is the best. And then vocabulary. We see that our students lack some background in vocabulary, and so being able to use this to even strengthen our vocabulary in the context. So this is how we really sneak in reading instruction, vocabulary instruction, background knowledge in our science and social studies. So I wanted to share one activity with you. I won't make you do it.
A really important feature when we were looking at the curriculum was the opportunity to use this to work on literacy skills. All grade levels have been able to use the newspapers to help with reading comprehension strategies such as the main idea and supporting details, and encouraging students to ask questions about what they read, those I wonder questions. Kindergarten also uses the papers to look at sight words. Intermediate grades have used the papers to look at cause and effect relationships and using context clues to determine the meanings of those unknown words. Students are also able to look at a variety of text features and learn how they assist with learning. These are all essential standards that align with the iLearn checkpoints at each grade level. As well as literacy skills, the students will have the opportunity to reinforce and make connections to concepts they are working on in STEM and math. And honestly, they're just fun to read. They're fun to read.
Now we get down to cost. So the total cost for a 6-year adoption per student is $48.33, or $8.06 per student per year. Through our research and negotiations, this is a much lower price than our current science curricular materials and the ones that we also evaluated.
As we wrap up this science presentation, I would like to highlight one of the comments from our participants that was on the committee, and I think speaks well to approving this adoption. Science Weekly allows different approaches to learning. Reading, there's hard copy, there's also an online version. Hands-on activities to explore, like the cookie activity you guys have. And the lesson can extend for a whole week to allow for reteaching and extension activities.
So it is our recommendation that the BCSC School Board approve Science Weekly for our elementary science resource. Thank you very much. Thank you. What questions do we have? Questions?
My only question is, where are my other 3 cookies? Because my homework says I need 4. And I only got 1.
Well, I understand, but we were going to make it really quick, so I didn't get 4 for you. I apologize. You can eat the one, it's a big one. I got a bigger one for
I'll
you.
break it into 4 pieces.
There you go.
Okay, break it into 4 pieces, there you go.
I'll share. Quick question on, when we're doing the curriculum evaluation, if I were to jog my memory, I think it was a year and a half ago, we did the math one for elementary, I believe. Like, I guess the only thing that I didn't see here was how the others compared in the categories and the pluses and minuses. I believe we had like a chart that said, obviously this one was more expensive, this one was slightly more expensive, and like this one brought this benefits. I 100% trust Ms. Devers' opinion. I'm going back to Taylorsville, so I'm totally there, and I believe in, I enjoyed the newsletters when we were there. We used to do the news studies as well, so I'm with you all on that. I guess I'm just saying it's like going forward, we do these, that compare and contrast is helpful just to be able to see what is out there, because if I recall, the biggest hurdle was we're typically looking at a K through 6, which cuts off immediately like 40 or 50% of the players because the majority are K through 5 now. So that was the other call out.
That is correct. That is as well for science. Some of the resources that we looked at were not a K to 6, and so that immediately knocks us off. Some go into a 6 through 8, and that's a middle school, and it's a completely different component. And so we can get some of that for you. One of the things I know that when we looked at it, I can just speak to you some on this, that with science and social studies, we really prioritize our reading and math. And with science and social studies, we also like to have some opportunity for our teachers to have some creativity. For example, I taught 6th grade. And in 6th grade, we study life science. And if I had a whole curriculum, I would feel very responsible to teach all of that because I knew it was very costly. And I knew that we had vested a lot into that. So that then really with our science social studies takes things away like we did, we dissected owl pellets. And we had a whole, it matched all the 6th grade science standards for life science. We read a novel that went with that. We had our science was all around life science, and we were able to pull in some additional activities and research projects. Our writing was all on life science and did the owl pellets. That was a much cooler thing than reading just having a huge consumable book. So we look at science and social studies a little bit different to allow for some of that thematic or some creativity on our teachers. But we'll look into some of that for you.
I love the weekly newspaper aspect of, I mean, it looks like a newspaper to me, which I think is kind of cool. But there's an online aspect too, so is it the same thing online?
So there is an online component, and the online component is all of the stories that are here. It can read it to them online. You can make it go faster, slower, the pace. And then a little different online is that after each story, after each section, there are a few multiple choice questions that you can do online. We see a lot of our older grades that with social studies that use the online component a little bit more than primarily our younger ones. And then our older ones are then using this for different project ideas, but they do have access, all grades have access to online. It can be placed on the smart boards, they can listen and discuss. Students can they have it on their Chromebooks, they can listen, they can use it at home as well. So yes, this exact same articles.
And is there you might have had this up there, I don't remember, a Spanish language version?
Yes, there is. Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, in terms of science adoption and academic challenge, do they adopt this same thing at the same grade level?
Yep. They adopt the same materials, because with this, that's the really great thing about this. I could take this one publication and turn it into whatever I needed. And with some of the grade levels, they have additional readings in the teacher's manual that comes with it. They come in a box with all of these, and then a teacher's manual. It has additional activities. It has project ideas. So with this, I can scaffold it to whomever is sitting in front of me and maybe do a project or a writing activity or an experiment, do posters, do all kinds of things with this to scaffold based on the needs of the students that I have.
And finally, when I looked at your presentation earlier, I actually did some homework, and looked up the next generation science standards. And one of the things that, I think this was new to me, but the three-dimensional learning they talked about, scientific practices, cross-cutting concepts and core ideas.
Yeah, so they
Those are in here?
changed, those changed, the next generation standards, the Indiana adopted those maybe 3 years ago. And our current, iLearn, our students take science, those are over those next generation standards. What is really nice about the next generation standards is that they are more national standards. So it's easier to find publications that meet those because it's not Indiana specific. Indiana, we like to be very special and have our own standards a lot of the times. But with going to the Indiana Next Generation Standards, they really talk a lot about phenomenons, what phenomenons are happening in nature, and how do we address those? How do you learn about those phenomenons in nature? And those cross-cutting aspects that you talked about are really looking at how do those cross into our ELA standards, our math standards, our social studies, our standards, our writing standards. So they're kind of bridging all of those things together. So we were excited with the next generation standards. They look very different, and a lot of them, they have a little bit more of a STEM kind of basis to them.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, my daughter graduated last year from East, and one of the things I struggled with throughout her entire school career was managing a paper that came home or a Chromebook that was not easy for me to use and read. Is there like a, it says print, but is that the print, or is there's, I never have understood why we went away from a good old textbook. Just because a parent, the reason why I say that is it makes it easier for the parent. If that goes home at the end of the week, the parent can engage with the kid nightly, daily.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the parents are, not all will.
Right.
But it makes it really hard for those that want to when they don't have the means or the mechanism or the tool to do that.
So I understand where you're coming from, and I've been in this district for 26 years. So I have gone from adoptions where I've taught, and it is hardback books. They go home. I've primarily taught the upper grades, and they've gone home. And it has been a real shift in the last many years where it's a consumable book. It's a workbook type book. We do not have, the publishers do not have the good old-fashioned hardback textbooks that we were maybe used to seeing. They are all going to a consumable type book, and that's the way that it's going, and it's online. Now, one thing that Dr. Hack has really prioritized in elementary, there has been some wave to go strictly online for all resources, and Dr. Hack has really prioritized, since I've known her, that elementary students must have print in hand. They must have print in hand. We are not at this point going to where everything is online. Where I live in the Mount Healthy area, we did not have very reliable internet. So if my students only had internet growing, through these years, I have a sophomore at Purdue and a senior in high school this year, our internet is sketchy at best and is very expensive. So she has always prioritized that we must in our elementary have print in hand for the students and for our parents so that they can have at least a hard copy. I like this better than the old textbooks because my son, I never saw that workbook until the last day of school when they brought it all home, where at least with this, you would at least have this and could then reinforce what's happening. So at least this would come home weekly instead of May 23rd. So.
No, thank you, Dr. Hack. I do appreciate your note just mentioning right now. To me, my opinion is no Chromebooks for the little kids. Make them learn to read. How many times have we sat in this room and made a big deal about books one way or another, and we push them straight to a computer, right? We tell them technology is no good, no phones in high schools, yet we shove computers in front of them as early as possible, and they've forgotten, kids today, how to read a book, regardless what's in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Hack asked me just to, I guess, to clarify a couple of things with your question. Because as I'm at Taylorsville, and we have actually been piloting this year, kind of as it's been a gap year for science adoption. So I was very interested in it, and so we are piloting this. And so one of the things, so they do get a new newspaper every week, but during the course of the week, so if this is my paper for this week, the kids get it on Monday. We do different activities with it throughout the week. And so it's not just stuck at school. It does go back and forth. During the week, I might have students do different activities, read the second article, highlight the main idea, what are the supporting details, in different colors, those kinds of things. And then at the end of the week, we might do some activities where we cut it up sometimes to make, kind of like living timelines with the information in the newspapers, those kinds of things. But then at the end of the week, we're done with this one, and then it can go and stay at home, and then we get another one. But it absolutely can go back and forth each day. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm curious about our relationship with the vendor during the 6 years. Is the first Science Weekly of the year always exactly the same, or are they going to change it up?
So that's
from year to
also
year?
the really great thing about this product is if there are errors, I have Zoomed with them, the company. They've asked me to help them rewrite some of the social studies that was Indiana. They rewrote our Indiana social studies publications for 3rd and 4th grade. So this year, the teachers and the students had updated versions of those. That's what's nice about this and not a hardback consumable book, is that these do get updated, they do get changed, they look at grades they look at each grade different years, and then they update these. And so every year there could be some changes. And so they send us a new updated box with all of the publications for the year, and they also give each teacher a new teacher's edition each year because they make updates to that. And so that's why it is very consumable too, because they make updates to it. They change the publications, and then we have a new updated one. And that's part of the cycle that we get the updated ones.
How long have we been doing the social studies under the same one?
So the social studies, so I think 3 years. This is our 3rd year with social studies, I believe, or 4th year with social studies. I think it was the 1st year I took this position. So we have been around 4 years with the social studies, 3 or 4 years with the social studies. They are fantastic to work with. They are a family-owned business, and they're just really a great company to work with, and they negotiate pricing with us.
So you liaison me right into my question was, and I don't know, I'm sure we time these up so the board doesn't have to approve multiple curriculums at the same time, but the way you describe social studies and science, right? You're wanting flexibility, the ability to scaffold up or down and not be structured to such a strict curriculum. And if we have that across multiple, I'm assuming you saw that similarity with the other providers as well. Does it make sense to possibly put science and social studies together on a renewal cycle in the future to leverage scale here for negotiations, and then essentially come back and say to the Studies Weekly, like, hey, instead of the 6 years of science, let's do 6 years from this point forward of social studies and science, and see where that price may or may not lie?
So actually, when we went to negotiations with them, we get a multi-year discount because we do a 6-year adoption. We also got another discount because we already have one of the products.
Okay.
So that was one of our points back to them. We do a 6-year adoption with you. We don't do, typically they have 1, 2 year, they go out to 5-year on their scale, and we say we want a 6-year, so they give us an even bigger discount, and then they give us even a more discount because we have one of their products already.
And I told Jeannie she could date herself. She used this product as one of her first years of teaching. So she knows the power of this product. They're wonderful to work with. It was in black and white. It was on a tablet. No. So we really do find the power of this product, and we know kids love it. And I'm sure Sean could stand up here and tell you how engaging the sixth graders are with this product. And it's been good. The social studies has been amazing, and now the science will be too.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Dr. Bozeman. Tough fact to follow.
I'm not going to try and beat that. I was going to make some joke about Dr. Hack doing my presentation, but I couldn't come up with anything clever, so I won't. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes of time. I'll be brief and happy to answer questions you may have. The slide that's in front of you is a current project budget update, as was mentioned last time we were together. Schmidt and Johnson, I think you're up to speed on. Central Middle School, you have an item for approval tonight to allow us to receive bids for the small bit of work at Central Middle School that basically includes updates to the library, the inclusion of a makerspace, a wellness area for the therapists, and other support personnel at Central Middle School. And that number also includes all new furniture and technology throughout the building. North side and north bid opening is next week, a week from tomorrow, that we're keeping a close eye on. The new elementary bid opening in early May. East and Smith and north side, by the way, those are listed together because they're combined in the same contract through the construction manager. East and Smith, we opened that bid 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and it came back in a little bit high, so we had tentatively planned on bringing that to your plates tonight for approval, but we're still going through that review, value engineering, and working with Dr. Volz at Smith and all of our partners to get that number where it needs to be. So we'll bring that to you here when we're ready to and make sure that's right. Mount Healthy Elementary, you'll notice that difference of the number in the bottom, and that is an estimate. Mr. Schultz is ringing in the back of my ear because he'll remember when we talked about this well over a year ago for $8 million on Mount Healthy. Mr. Schultz told me that's not enough. And I did not disagree with Mr. Schultz. If you may recall me mentioning at the time, if it's not enough, we will adjust budget so Mount Healthy is done correctly. So that is what we're looking at now. This is a slide to represent some options that CSO has given us in terms of how we want to approach that building. I won't read this to you, but basically, left-hand side, some minor to moderate scope change, and then option 2 on the right-hand side, significant change. So you've heard me say more than twice that we intend to get that building correct, and we still intend to get that building correct. So that scope will change. That number on Mount Healthy is an estimate, as I mentioned, and as we get closer to time, we'll adjust that number and bring you up to speed with that. And of course, CSO, when we're ready, they will be here to present that floor plan and everything to you as we have with the other projects. The 2 items you have for approval in front of you tonight is to allow us permission to receive bids to submit an RFP for construction manager as constructor for Mount Healthy. Again, you may recall we had originally intended that to be a general contractor project, but for the scope of what we're looking at now, we think it's best served to be a construction manager, as our other projects have been. So you have that, and then of course the permission to receive bids for the small bit of work at Central Middle School. A couple of other items in the bottom there. We have groundbreaking ceremonies coming up at Smith Elementary and Northside Middle School, and the dates listed there. You have a calendar invite from me, board members, already on that, and that's certainly open to the public as well. We'll have students and staff there. And Mr. Sterner, thank you for mentioning the DNF's work with the naming of the new elementary school. I don't have this on my slide, but I'll mention that this week we'll release that survey for the community to help us give feedback on naming of that new elementary school on the west side of town. So that will, as you mentioned, Mr. Stenner, that will come back to the board for approval, but we're excited for that survey to be released this week to allow the community to begin to give feedback and options as we consider naming of the new school on the west side of town. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
For the design approach for Mount Healthy, I'm assuming similar to the other processes, collection of teachers, administrators, parents, to gain insights of which option is best to seek?
Yes, yeah, okay. Very much so, yep.
I just had one question about the Mount Healthy slide. Pretty certain I know the answer, but just want to be absolutely certain. On the fire suppression system, the sprinkler system, I'm assuming it is intact the way that it is. Nothing is missing. There's no room for improvement there. This would just be if we add additional space that wouldn't have that.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
good question. That's
Being
correct.
certain.
So the fire suppression system is really relative to how much work you're going to do. So when you start doing moderate and heavy renovations, then you, by code, you're required to update those items as well. So.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we are on to the public comments section of our meeting. For people who may not be aware, if you want to speak at a school board meeting, you can come in here at the administration building. There's always a blue sheet on the table when you walk in. You can sign up with your name and you'll be provided 3 minutes to address the board. In terms of how we like to conduct those 3 minutes, we do ask that everybody refrain from using names of individuals, students, staff members, or specific titles. That's kind of the same thing. We want to make sure all comments stay respectful. If you have a person that has spoken just before you and they've made your point, you can pass if you'd like to, or you can come up and add. That's up to you. We will have a timer over there for 3 minutes to make sure that you can stay on time. And then I would ask the audience for no cheers, jeers, etc. We just want to make sure that everybody feels comfortable coming up and speaking in front of an audience. We know that's very difficult for people. Okay, so the first name I have on the list is Megan Johnson.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, some great things that we've talked about tonight, but I do have some questions that I'd like to ask the board. Are you straight, lesbian, or bisexual, pansexual, demisexual, or asexual? Are you undecided or not sure? Are you non-binary or consider yourself a third gender? Do you feel these questions are really any of my business? I don't. If you answered yes, are you aware that the same survey you are giving to our 7th and 8th grade students on March 10th in 7 days ask these same questions? Why are we even asking questions regarding sexuality to students that are below the age of consent? That's a problem. Are you aware that this same survey is probing students to report if teachers are teaching that race plays a part in who is successful? This is incredibly sensitive and quite frankly insulting to members, including in my family. I believe this school corporation should examine the material you are handing out to our students a little closer, because it appears you are in violation of the new changes that have already been made at the Department of Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next, I have Dawn Hancock. Oh, that's okay. No problem. No problem. Okay, and then on the list is Kyle Ogle.
Good evening. First, I want to start by reading 3 sentences from your guys' policy. The school board is committed to providing a safe, positive, productive, and nurturing education environment for all of its students. The board encourages the promotion of positive interpersonal relations between members of the school community. Bullying behavior towards a student, whether by other students or staff, or third parties, is strictly prohibited and will not be tolerated. In my entire time in high school, middle school, and elementary school, I have never been bullied as much as my daughter has in the first 2 years of her central middle school career. She has been demeaned put down, disregarded by teachers and staff, and bullied by teachers and staff. I have brought it to the attention of the principal and several other students, and nothing has been done. So what are we going to do to get this rectified? And it's not only my daughter that has been subject to the bullying. Other classmates have been subjected to bullying. In one instance, she was hit by another child and told to go sit down, that she deserved it. That is not okay. And that is a disgrace upon our educational system. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ogle. I think we're going to move on to requests for approval.
Thank you, Mrs. Wielden. Under old business tonight, I have simply one request for the approval of the minutes from the February 3rd regular school board meeting as well as the February 8th executive session. Request approval of item 6A as presented.
I move to approve line item 6A as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz and Mr. Glick. Any questions or comments from the team? Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve item 6A. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Under new business this evening, we have items 7A through 7G. The normal approvals of supplemental contracts, field trips and leaves, school fundraisers, as well as claims and payroll for the March 3rd docket of just over $1.5 million and two payrolls in February 7th and 21st of just over $7.7 million. And then under items E through F, items F and G are, E through G. Items F and G are the two approvals that Dr. Bozeman mentioned before. Item E is the Literacy Achievement Grant information we've sent to the board a couple of times on that over the last month or so. This is only the second year for that grant, and that grant provides, from the state, provides stipends to teachers who serve students in grades K through third grade. I should say, correct myself and say staff. So teachers and staff who serve students in kindergarten through third grade. And the stipends would go to 180 teachers, 164 classified staff members. And this grant comes directly from the state and passes through directly to those staff members. A request approval of items 7A through 7G as presented.
I move that we approve items 7A through 7G under new business.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nell and Mr. Major. Any questions or comments from the team on any of those items?
I've done this before. I like noting it. The first, as I read it, the first 4 field trips were completed prior to today for this approval, and 8 out of the 12 fundraisers started before this meeting. So I just like to highlight that the approval's late.
So noted. Thank you.
I have a question for Mr. McGyver. Do I need to withdraw my vote for item E based off of my conflict of interest?
Explain your conflict of interest for me.
So conflict of interest, my wife is she is a TA, and under classified staff, she would be subject to possibly getting a stipend. So would I need to withdraw my vote for that?
Based on, you filed a disclosure form at the start of the year?
Correct.
Based on the way the statute is written, it is likely not technically a conflict of interest when that form gets filed. However, I think our board has generally abstained from voting on those where there might be an appearance of a conflict.
So you would just not vote on any of those? Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I have a motion and a second to approve 7A through G as presented. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. No, Mr. Glick abstained, so motion passes 6-0.
Good evening. Okay. Good evening, Board. The 15 human resources recommendations consist of 5 appointments, 5 resignations, and 5 leaves of absence. I request that you please approve the personnel recommendations as presented.
I move to approve line items 8A as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz and Mr. Nellen. All those in favor of approving 8A as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. The additional human resources recommendations this evening consist of 2 recommendations. I request that you please approve the additional human resources recommendations as presented.
I move for approval of 8B at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Glick.
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Nellen. Any questions or concerns? Okay. All those in favor of approving items 8B, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Board input. We'll start down at Mr. Major. That's okay.
All right, sorry about this. This is going to take a little while, but I reached out to Dr. Phillips earlier this week. And, I just was thinking that we do a really good job of acknowledging sports and teams and individuals that participate in activities when they place at the state level, but we don't do probably enough to recognize all state academic achievements. And so it's one thing to be really good at a sport, but it's also a little bit greater to excel on your with your sport or activity and be recognized across the state as academic achievers. So I'm going to go through this real quick. This is for fall sports. So for East High School, football, Cameron Herron, girls cross country, Eleanor Dixon, boys cross country, Lauren Westerfield, boys tennis, Tyler Ernst, volleyball, Rahena Logan, Kimberly Carruthers, Jenna Thompson, Addison Emery, boys soccer, Jonathan Silva, Eli Ostrom, John Ruck, Brady Wiltsey, Ian Scholl, Isaac Going, girls soccer, Sophie Glick, Emma Christie, Cadence Zeeser, Joe Conrad, Meg Going, Paige Loykinger, Sherilyn Rivas. Apologize if I made any errors with the names. Columbus North High School, girls golf, Kara Booten. Lindsay Hartwell, girls cross country, Macy Eaton, Katie Frazier, Emma Glenn Jones, Kylie Wolf. Boys cross country, Cole Stevens, Neil White, Drew Jacoby, Johnny Klaus, Ben Soda, Eli Soda, Jace Works, Eli Reitzman. Girls soccer, this is a lot here, it's probably the whole team. Hayden Bigler, Amelia Corney, Anna Halstead, Caitlin Cassidus, Allison Colehouse, Rachel Merritt, Brooklyn Pendleton, Gabby Revel, Libby Richards, Gabby Spurgeon, Paige Terry, and Norse football team, Jay Simmet, Bryce Harriman, Jackson Haston, Jack Johnson, Owe Kibler, Sam Romino, Jose Ramirez, and Luke Russell. All those kids, if you think about the effort that they put forth to, again, excel on a field, on a court, in a classroom, that's all exceptional work. So I just want to congratulate them. And hopefully we can do something for winter sports in the coming month or so to recognize some winter sports athletes and activities as well. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to do that. That's really great. I just want to send good thoughts and good luck and gratitude to the teachers who are testing with IREAD this week. I'm sure there's a lot of nerves happening. I also want to wish Coach Branham and his students good luck as they head to Purdue on March 15th for the Math Count State Finals.
It's good to recognize student achievement, so I'm glad we had Lily Davis here this evening. appreciate Mr. Major and Ms. Lloyd pointing out the students that are achieving success. I'm particularly thankful for the amount of time we're able to spend tonight listening to the data and the strategies in the cabinet reports, and the fact that we had a lot of teachers and staff involved in the presentations makes it more meaningful to me. So thank you for putting those on the agenda, and thanks to the cabinet members for getting those reports together.
I love my STEM work, so I would like to give a shout out to the robotics teams within our school district. 5 teams from Central and 2 teams from Smith have qualified for the state competition on March 22nd. Team Central Cyborgs is ranked 26th out of 436 Indiana middle school teams, which is just amazing. And Team Supersonics, which is Smith, is ranked 16th out of 738 elementary schools. The top 18 teams in each division between elementary and middle school get invited to Dallas for a world competition. So pretty remarkable work by the teachers, parents, kids that are enjoying this activity.
I also want to express thanks for the presentations tonight. They were all great and tied in with what we're trying to accomplish. Along those lines, I would love to see something similar to what we saw with IREAD in terms of predicting our graduation rate, maybe from we finished first semester and maybe how we're doing there. And also something that that Logan mentioned earlier, the new high school graduation requirements with pathways. I don't think we've seen a presentation on that, and that certainly ties in with our goal of high school graduation rates. So sometime down the road, I would like to learn more about those at a board meeting. And my other 2 things from the Friday notes, Ms. Lloyd already mentioned the Northside Math Counts, but I'm going to throw out the student names here. The team member, and I'm going to be bold here in doing this. The team members are Vaishnavi Pina, Anand Neela, Advay Anup, and Alicia Yang, and they scored a perfect 10 out of 10 on the team round, which is one of the 4 parts of that contest. I asked, well, let me also throw in, this wasn't in the Friday notes, the Columbus North math team is currently 3rd in the state on the Indiana Math League, behind Park Tudor and Carmel, with 1 more round to go. That's a monthly 6-round contest. I bring that up because I asked Mr. Branham if he was the only coach or if someone else helped him, and he said actually he takes the top 10 students from North and they go to Northside once a week after school to work with the Northside Math Counts team, and I thought that was a phenomenal idea. And the other thing from the Friday notes, and it's been mentioned a couple times, but kudos to CSA New Tech, CSA Fadria, and CSA Lincoln on the names for the new elementary school. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read them, but when I read through, I thought, ooh, this is it. And then I read the next one. Oh, this is better. Oh, wait, this one's good. It's like, I am not going to fill out that form because I don't think I could pick one. But the work that they put into that and the way they presented those names with rationale was just really, really impressive.
Well, some of mine have been taken, so mine will be short. I guess I'll focus on athletics because academics have been pretty heavy. First off, though, I will like to say congratulations to Lily Davis, and it's amazing to see the things that she's done. I've known her and her family for a long time, and they are a phenomenal family. So it's great to see her succeeding as we move further down the road. This week is sectionals for basketball, so good luck to those teams. Swimming had state this last week, and good luck to gymnastics as they're in the state tournament. And next meeting, we get to see a couple of the North wrestlers that got up on the podium, and because that happened 2 weeks ago, I believe. So I may sound a little hoarse. I was screaming and yelling all weekend with Central Wrestling. We got second down at Heritage Hills Tournament. It's one of the toughest tournaments in Southern Indiana, so it was pretty good. And this week, Wednesday, is Northside versus Central duel at Northside, and then Northside will also be hosting the Tri-County Wrestling Tournament. So if you want to see some good competitive wrestling as it continues to grow, we have a phenomenal females that are wrestling as well. It's great to see. So.
Yeah, and when you're at the end, nothing's left, so you just kind of repeat what everybody else has said. But I want to emphasize, I think Lily was a great example of how we pair needs within BCSC with passions and abilities that they can demonstrate through their senior projects. So commend Mr. Burnett or whoever connected her to that situation, so that was great. I want to plus one to what Mr. Nallen said on the presentations. These are exactly what we were wanting to see, and I was also going to ask for one on the Indiana high school diplomas and the update there. I will say thank you on the Mount Healthy piece. I think in all of my tours of schools, that was the most frustrating. And right now, I do not have my hearing aids on because I'm waiting for them to get back to me from a warranty repair. But when I walked through that building, I could at all times hear 3 teachers talking at the same time, and there was no way I could have listened. So I commend the team going through that, and I mean, we'll find the budget. I think at the end of the day, the kids have to learn and be able to hear, and then I have a couple follow-ups with you, Dr. Phillips, from the public comment.
Okay, one thing I forgot, we're talking about IREAD testing. I think our high schools also have SAT testing this week, so just lots of thoughts with the kiddos who are probably stressed out, the teachers who are watching them be stressed out and administering tests. It's just a big week, so big breakfast, lots of hugs, extra sleep would be good to help our kiddos perform well. Upcoming dates, our next regular board meeting is March 31st, 2025. It will be at Columbus North High School rather than in this building, so we'll be in the cafeteria there on March 31st.
And that will be a very busy meeting. I don't know if they're going to bring those pies or not, but those are the top 10 from East High School with that would look like pies. I'm not 100% sure if that's the case or not, but they will be celebrating a lot of large groups at that meeting as well as the following meeting in April. Prior to that meeting in April, we've tentatively scheduled a tour for the board members of Schmidt's renovated space. And good luck to the 2 basketball teams tomorrow. We know them both. North and East play one another in the first round of sectional. I think there's some conspiracy theories floating around since almost every town that has 2 high schools in it drew each other in the first round. So I'm not saying that there's conspiracy, but it sure seems like, where there's smoke, there's fire. Look for that survey in the community about those names for the 12th elementary. Brad, I hope you put that in the paper prominently so everyone can click on a link and get to it. And then last and most importantly on my mind, as we enter into breaks, I always think about our students' safety. So families enjoy the spring break coming up here in 2 weeks. Travel safely, and students that are staying home, driving, take care and come back to us that Monday after break safely.
Thank you. Okay, with that, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.